11th meeting of the Newmarket Planning Board. If everyone will please stand, say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So Eric is not here this evening. He is excused, so Ted, I'll have you sit in for him as the alternate,
Okay.
and Mikkel for Bill. Okay, thank you. And first order of business, are there any public comments for anything that's not on the agenda? Hearing none, I'll close the general public comment session. Review and approval of the January 28th meeting minutes. To approve.
Motion to approve the January 28th meeting minutes.
Okay, is there a second? Oh, sorry, is there any comments? Any edits, modifications? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and hearing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Jane. Okay. Next order of business is Pelzer Realty LLC. Applicant Michael Pelzer, it's a continuation of a public hearing for an application for site plan review regarding adding a 40 by 40 accessory building to the existing funeral home at the rear of the lot with additional parking and utilities. The building will be used for crematory services. The lot is located at 77 Exeter Road, tax map U3, lot 136 in the B1 zone. If you'll state your name.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. John Lorden with Ty and Bond, here representing we were here last month. I believe we had a productive meeting. We got some feedback, and I think we've been even more productive since that meeting. We did receive additional comments from the town. We also received comments from Underwood Engineering. Those comments have been addressed. They have reviewed those comments, and it went pretty quickly, which is very surprising. And we already have a letter back saying that they accepted all the comments. So, real quick, what we did was we revised the limits of work. We showed a snow storage area.
Do you have updated plans for the board?
If I could get to that after.
Okay.
We don't. I'd like to just kind of walk through the
Okay.
changes, and then we will be submitting something new.
Very good.
If you can hear me, in here they commented that there was potential concern that the snow storage area and it being downhill would get a little soggy, so they wanted a thin layer of gravel below 3 inches of loam and seed. So we did that, add that to the plans. We added the granite pieces as there's large granite sections out there. We're putting those around the bollards, or in place of bollards, around the propane tanks, and also to protect the shed. We did some minor block grading around the parking area and out in front of the crematory. And it was determined at the last meeting that a waiver would be required for parking in the setback. And that was right here. So we have revised the plan to show, I believe we were extending over 5 feet or so, so we pulled that back. That was easy enough to do without having to ask for a waiver. So that's shown and reflected on that plan. I think there was just one other outstanding comment, and that was about the utility poles. The request was to try to come off of this utility pole and Eversource, because of what's actually across the street. There are 3 transformers on it. They could knock them off of that. Through some quick thinking and a lot of phone calls, so it's now going to be proposed to come off of the existing building. So if we haven't updated a plan like this, but if I may show, it would come off the corner of this, back across the pavement here, and then follow along the edge of the pavement until it came back down off the pavement and then back to the crematory. So it would all be underground. There'd be no poles coming across 108 or through the property. However, and this is the reason we didn't submit revised plans, this is now going to require a special use permit because we're disturbing earth within the wetland buffer. So this blue line is the wetland buffer on either side. Wetlands here and wetlands here. So we are trenching through it. We're talking about 2.5 inch conduit and an 18-inch wide trench. So it'd be very little disturbance. We think it's gonna be less than 300 square feet, and just a simple trench. So we're hoping that's gonna be acceptable to the board, but before we can do anything, we just need to submit that, go to abutters, and have another public meeting in a month from now. But what we're hoping is to get conditional approval on this part of the project, knowing that we're going to be submitting, hopefully tomorrow, a revised application that shows that trenching and shows the parking shifted, stamped, and cleaned up.
In '99, we already trenched that once, so it's already been disturbed.
This is land that's already been disturbed. But we would be returning it back to, the area with pavement would be a small patch. Outside of that, we would return to lawn area.
Okay. So there are no waiver requests with
So we
the
had two
proposed
waiver
application,
requests.
right?
One was for lighting above the
Okay,
20-foot
right.
high. We don't need that anymore because
Okay.
we don't have the utility poles with the lights on it
Mm-hmm.
at about 25 feet. So that was done, so we do still have one waiver for pedestrian and
Oh,
bike
right, biking.
access to the green zone.
Okay.
That will continue to request.
Does anyone from the public have any questions for the applicant? Or to the board on this application? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any board members have any questions for the applicant? Okay, do you want it, let's handle the waiver request, then we'll go into Diane's comments. I have a motion to grant a waiver to section 410, thank you, 410C4 regarding the need for the site plan to show pedestrian, bicycle, and transit amenities. Is there a motion to approve that waiver?
I'll make a
motion to approve the waiver as stated.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, passes. Okay. Diane, you have some noted conditions of approval?
I do. John did a great job in giving an overview of where we've been in the last couple of weeks and where we are now. He's made a lot of progress indeed. Thank you for your willingness to work with us. We appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. As was mentioned, Underwood Engineers has reviewed the revised plans and has signed off on them. So we're all set with that, and I just attached a copy of the letter so you can see that, because that was one of the concerns or conditions that came up at the last meeting. We've also received the letter from DOT, and they are not requiring additional permitting at this point, but there was a recommendation in their letter that there's a stop sign, I guess, and an entrance sign that needs, do not enter sign, that signs that need to be installed, and the applicant has agreed to do so as part of this project, so that will fulfill their requirement. So that's, and we have spoken about the utility poles that have been removed, the overhead wires, and I think the proposed plan as presented is a great improvement over what was originally proposed. I think that was a great change. And kudos to you to working with Eversource and making that happen. It's not an easy task, so I understand.
Does the applicant have a copy of your planner report? Do you have a copy of the conditions?
Yes, I've given you
Okay,
copies
all
of all
right,
of them.
okay, great, thank you. And for the board, it's page 2, Diane's planner's report.
Does everybody have a
Okay.
copy?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. We already talked about the waivers, and so what I'm recommending at this point, that the plans be approved with 5 conditions. The first condition pertains to the condition that was placed on the original permit by DOT, which, as stated, the applicant has agreed to comply with. The second is that the applicant secure a special use permit pursuant to our wetlands overlay district. There's some poorly drained soils and a 50-foot buffer, as Mr. Warden has shown on his plan. And because of that, because there'll be a alteration of already altered area, land, so forth, it still requires a special exception or special use permit from the planning board. And we already received an application from Mr. Lorden, and that's gonna be scheduled for the March 17th meeting, so we can take it up at the next meeting. Third condition is that we have some kind of updated utility plan that shows the path of the underground utilities and the impact area for the wetlands and the buffer. And he indicated that that would be submitted along with the formal application tomorrow, which we appreciate that. Fifth was a recommendation that air quality permitting be provided by New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. Before the meeting, I had a brief discussion with Mike, and he's indicated that because of the threshold and the size of the unit, that it's not gonna require an air quality permit. So we could probably say as applicable, or just strike that condition altogether, because it doesn't apply. And the fifth condition is that the final plans be stamped by the licensed professional engineers that worked on the plans. And with that, I would recommend approval of the application.
Any questions for the planner on those conditions? Okay, is the board fine with striking that, the fourth one, of the area not applicable? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Just take it right
Okay.
off the list.
So can I have a motion to conditionally approve the application with the remaining four conditions outlined in the town planner's letter, memo dated 2/10/2020?
So moved.
Okay, Ted, is there a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. Thank you, and good luck with the project, and we will see you next month on the 11th.
See you next month.
And just for everyone's knowledge, because the special use permit falls under the ordinance, for the public's knowledge, we can't waive that. That's why they have to come back. Okay? And they have to meet the certain conditions under the ordinance, which they'll present next month. Okay,
Thank you. Sure.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, Mr. John Kipper, a continuation of a hearing for an application for a waiver of full requirements for a major site plan review pursuant to section 105C1 to establish a non-residential use of 700 square feet where no residential use that currently exists. If a waiver is granted, the application will be reviewed under my review. The application is for a change of use for the second floor from residential to commercial to allow for a lounge to be added above the existing restaurant. The proposal also includes a 10-seat outdoor patio in the back of the building to be used in summer as a beer garden. The applicant also requests a waiver from the parking on-site, requirements of on-site parking as described in Site Plan Appendix B, Section 302, Parking A345. The lot is located at 170 Main Street, Tax Map U3, Lot 175 in the M2 zone. So we first need, before we go into this, it's my understanding we need to determine whether or not we can hear this under a minor site plan application. And that is under,
Under section 105.
105B outlines minor review
It's a minor-
versus major review.
It's on the next page, and it's anything that doesn't constitute a minor, or one that's waived altogether.
And the applicant is requesting a waiver for major site plan review, which would bump it back into minor.
Correct.
Pleasure to discuss that first, or to get an overview from the applicant of what the project is and his reasonings for, requesting the waiver.
I do think we have to accept the application.
That's what I was
first.
wondering.
Yeah. We have to have jurisdiction before we can waive it.
But he's requesting an application for a minor site plan review, and we don't know if this qualifies for a minor site plan review is
He
more.
has submitted an application requesting waiver, and if the board grants the waiver, then we can continue on with the review of the application under the minor subdivision.
So, but I'm confused, because if it doesn't qualify under our regulations as a minor review, is the application for a minor review?
If it-
So therefore,
If it doesn't qualify, and in this case, it doesn't meet the threshold for a minor,
right,
if you have a conversion of non-residential space, you're establishing new non-residential space greater than 500 square feet, then it kicks it into the next category, which is a major subdivision. But the planning board has the ability to waive any requirements that are within the site plan
right, so why
regulations.
I'm confused is you want us to accept first.
Accept the application for the waiver, to
Oh, for the
consider the
waiver.
waiver
Okay.
first. And then,
Okay,
based upon your outcome, then we can
All right.
accept the application for review.
and the application for the waiver is complete.
That's correct.
Okay.
At this point, yes.
All right, thank you, appreciate that.
And just
Sorry
for
for the
clarity,
Yeah.
confusion.
Diane, I think you mentioned it was 500 square feet,
That's correct.
and this is qualified as 700 square feet.
It's 700,
But it's
also-
residential.
Right,
But let's
okay.
talk
I just want to
ab-
make sure I understood what you said,
But
500.
there's also,
But-
it's also adding some outdoor
Right, right.
space,
Right.
which increases it above 700.
So let's first talk about the application for the waiver itself,
Okay.
because I think that's what
Yep.
you're saying. So we can accept the application for the waiver because that is substantially complete.
That is correct.
Okay. And before I call a motion on that, is there any public comment regarding the waiver, of the application of the waiver, whether it's complete or not? We'll get into the,
Oh, I thought you were asking.
no, it's,
Oh, I'm sorry.
if there's any comments from the public as whether or not the application is complete for the request of the waiver.
Or do they have
It's
the
a-
application available, so they can comment on it?
It's just, you have the
Okay.
application.
Yeah, and it's
The
online and
application was
everything.
the letter that
Yeah,
was sent
yeah,
by
they would
Mr.
have had that.
Waiver.
So that's the administrative part of it, whether or not needed within the application has been provided for. Okay. All right, so hearing no questions about the application completeness, I'll close the public hearing on that. So now is there a motion to approve, accept the application for the waiver as being substantially complete?
I'll make a motion to accept the
Okay.
waiver as being substantially complete.
And is there a second?
Second?
Okay, all right, so any further discussion on whether or not the application is complete? Hearing none, I'll call a motion, all those in favor? Aye? Okay, so now we can go through the request for this waiver, as to why you would want the board to consider the waiver under the application as qualifying for a minor review, meaning that we would be waiving the requirements for the major review. Okay? And so I'll let you do your presentation on that,
Just, some
and then we'll open it to public comments.
stuff that I didn't have a chance to get to you guys
Okay,
before.
thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
So my name is Jonathan Piper, 170 Main Street. I'm here asking for a waiver for the full requirements for a major site review. I'm just gonna go over quickly some of what you guys have out there. It's just, the first stack is some photos of the rear of the building where there's gonna be the beer garden. So, first thing I'm gonna show you right here is the staircase deck. I didn't include a photo of this because I just didn't think it was quite necessary. So this is the driveway. That's Johnny Botson's. To the right would be Riverworks. This is a driveway that's in between them. On my survey and on the survey that I provided with you, this is deemed as ownership unknown. So when I bought the building, was told by the previous owner that my building as well as Riverworks as well as Jade Garden have got a easement to use this driveway. So I park here as well as do that. Back here you can see where I park. This is parking that belongs to Tong Zen, who owns Jade Garden. His property line's, right up there. So this is the staircase. There's a railing, as you can see, that separates the deck from the driveway. And the whole deck this is all on my lot, my
as you can see from the survey. The survey boundary, sorry for the shadow there, I copied the staple. So again, you can see the staircase going up here, coming around, and then Riverworks, pocket park, just so you have the general idea of what we're talking about. And down here in red, I've marked out the parking. So right here is generally is where we park. This is an old foundation for a trailer that used to be there. This is roughly where the beer garden is going to be. You can see this deck here, and it's about 10 feet out to that point there. And as we circle down here, this is looking down from the side of Zion Hill, looking south at the back of the building. This is sort of a granite wall here, and there's a bit of a stone wall that sort of comes out here. So this is, the edge of this is, you can't move past there. That's, a natural boundary. This is looking the opposite direction. You can see this stone there, the granite, and where the general outdoor seating area will be. And this is just another angle sort of showing you the back wall. So literally this is all granite. Stone Church would be over here. Pocket Park would be sort of right over here. And this is just one last photo showing you, this is the top of the stairwell, this is the fence, that's where Johnny Watson's is now, that's Riverworks there, and you can just see a little bit of the Chinese restaurant over there. This is the lounge layout, and as we have it planned out right now, this is the entrance, which, just to give you perspective, is that door right there. And one of the reasons why I'm asking for a minor site review as opposed to a major site review is literally this is more or less the layout as it is now of the residential space. This is where the restroom is. There's a door here that we're going to move over here. There's currently a set of French doors that are here that I would be removing. And other than that, the kitchen sink is right there, so that'll be swapped out for a 3-bay sink. And then I'll be placing a bar here and a bar here, a kegerator here. So one of the main reasons that I thought it qualified for a minor site review is that I'm really doing very limited construction. I mean, pretty much almost none, aside from painting and that sort of stuff. The reason that this is the case is this was a tavern that was built in 1835, so the ceilings are 9.5-foot ceilings. It's already, there was some walls previously that my former owner took out, so there's literally no, there's pretty much no walls, which makes it not always the best apartment when you have 4-year-old, but would make a great addition to my restaurant. And that is it for that part of the PowerPoint presentation. If you guys, do you want the full boundary surveys? Do you need them?
The application, I'd like.
Do you need them right now? Do you want to look at them right now, I guess is what I'm asking?
No, because what we're really trying to,
Okay.
the only thing we're discussing at this point is whether or not
Right.
we're going to grant a waiver
Yep.
to not go through major review.
Right.
So we need to discuss whether or not this falls under minor.
Sure.
Or what.
So if anything up here, I have the full scan report, full size if you need to see them for any reason.
So I'm gonna open this up to the public. So if we can just, we'll have some
Should I
comments
come up
from the
there?
public.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
please,
you.
and state your name and address, please, for the
Okay,
record.
hi, I'm Patty Visconti. I own 165 Main Street, which is across the street
Okay.
from this. I think it's a great idea. I'm totally supportive of it. The only concern is we do have a parking lot. And with all the, with beer garden people and, converting, having more people there, I don't want to have to police our parking lot with people parking there. So I don't know the difference between a big, site review and this. This seems like that's probably fine, but I don't know if a big site review would include the parking, or you guys could include parking restriction on this. That he that you do promise to handle the parking, so everybody's not parking there. And in addition, there's 3 spots in front of my building, which is public parking. I just want to make sure that construction trucks don't park there and everything else. I mean, I've got people trying to run a business, so I mean, it's open to the public to park, but I just wouldn't want construction trucks. And that's my only concern, but other than that, I think it's a great project.
Can I have the spelling of your last name, please?
V as in Victor, I-S-C-O-N-T-E.
Great, thank you.
All right?
Appreciate that, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Diane, do you have any comments relative to
Well,
the waiver request?
I think somewhat typical lot for our downtown area, where we have older buildings that were built, hundreds of years, couple hundred years ago, whatever. And that the land use patterns are pretty well established. There's small lots. There isn't a lot of room. There's not a lot of open space between the buildings. And I think our zoning regulations recognize that in the downtown, there are constraints because of the historical patterns of development. And because of that, there are certain waivers that are, there is certain flexibility on parking and some of the requirements that would apply to the downtown that wouldn't apply to, say, an area where you have undeveloped land in the business 1 zone, where you can just come in and just develop because there's plenty of land for parking and so forth. So I think, we've been always grappling with, we've got to come up with some kind of balance for downtown. We want to encourage downtown development because of the jobs, and we want to, bring continued economic prosperity to the town. So we really, we've had a tradition where we haven't been as stringent in our site plan review controls in the downtown area as we have in, say, a site that just is brand new and there is more opportunity for expansion. So I think, in light of that, I think we're flexible about not requiring full-blown engineering plans. There isn't anything really, any land to engineer anything, to be quite honest. There's no land for parking. The building is basically the lot is basically taken up entirely by the footprint of the building. So there is definitely a constraint, and it's, in a sense, it's almost a physical hardship. I know the planning board doesn't work in the context of physical hardship, the zoning board does, but because of the physical layout of the land, there really isn't much opportunity for expansion. And so in light of that, we have been, fairly lenient in applying regulations and offering some kind of relief, if you will, to the downtown property owners. So I guess, I kind of look at that perspective as well. And, it's wonderful to see the downtown thriving, and I think we have some momentum going, and I think if we can, better utilize the existing space that we have and encourage property owners like Jonathan to make investments in their property, that's going to keep the process going, the revitalization process going. So I guess that's just sort of more of a philosophical point of view that I have about downtown redevelopment, but, I would hope the board would see that. And you can look at our ordinance, and it talks about some of these things.
We did get another letter from an abutter,
Yes, we did.
and I'm gonna just read that in, if everyone
Yes,
has a
please.
copy of that. And what, was the did the applicant get a
I
copy?
did get a copy of it,
Okay.
sent it to me.
This is from Jennifer Jarvis. I have reviewed the waiver requests and so that's Riverworks, okay. I have reviewed the waiver requests and have several concerns. I can unfortunately not make tonight's meeting, but I am respectfully requesting that you share my concerns to the meeting with the planning board. This is directed to Diane. As the property owner 164 Main Street, which is directly next to 170 Main Street, I am not in support of John Kipper's request to waive the full requirements of a major site plan review. My concern with the first waiver request is that I do not see how turning a residential second-story space where 3 people currently reside into a commercial lounge and beer garden, which would serve alcohol to potentially 30 people, could be considered a minor change and meet the criteria for a minor site plan review. I also have safety concerns with the access to the proposed commercial space. Currently, there is a narrow stairway which the residential tenants use to access their apartment, which is directly attached to the driveway of 164 Main Street. I have major concerns about an additional 30 people going up and down the stairway, especially in the winter, and anticipate they'll be using the driveway instead of the stairway. And this additional foot traffic on an already dangerous driveway is a major safety and liability concern. As the adjacent property owner, as a business owner, as well as a resident, I am not in support of parking requirements. Parking has been and continues to be a problem in the downtown area, so I do not understand how waiving a requirement so that an additional 30-seat lounge could be permitted with no plan by the applicant for additional parking would be beneficial for anyone, including the applicant. Appreciate you sharing my concerns with the waiver request at tonight's meeting. Respectfully, Jennifer Jarvis. Okay, so that's entered into the record. So I think really where the board needs to have this discussion is, whether or not we want to either have the applicant go down the road of major review with probably several waiver requirements under section 6, is it, I believe? 2.04 under the review. And then all the plat standards, because that would really fall under, so you would be going to those sections and probably coming to us for a lot of waivers under those sections.
Which is why
But-
it was
Okay.
structured the way it was, because and we've done this with other applications as well.
And then, because that's really when a lot of the parking issues would come into play, is under major site review. Or do we look at this under minor review, even though it doesn't qualify for any of the 4 items under minor review? Obviously, if you would have looked at it from that perspective. So, any comments or discussion for the board?
I agree with Diane. I think this is a small plot of land. And looks like there's gonna be limited changes in this layout. So I agree with Diane.
So as we're reviewing this, right now, we're only talking about the second floor, we're not
It's a-
talking about the beer garden, second floor only.
No, it's the whole application. So what it is, it's an application of a change of use. So right now, it's a residential use on the second floor, and there's no commercial use of the proposed beer garden area. I'm assuming it's just part of the second floor tenant's use. So this is certainly a very significant change of use, going from how many people are residing on the second floor?
3.
3 people to potentially 20, 30?
Yeah.
10 in the beer, plus the beer garden. So the planning board, we don't really care what's inside that building. Our purview is the change of use. And the discussion in the approval relative to the site and the change of the use. So that's, I think, might be more answering your question, Jane.
Okay.
That's really our purview.
Yep.
Not so much of how that's configured, it's the fact that it's going from 3 people to, I don't wanna misquote, 20, 30 people.
20 or 30,
Right.
I mean, the way that I was imagining it in my head was that likely the beer garden will be mainly used in the summer and the inside will be in the winter. I don't really imagine that everyone would be in both, just because, why would you be inside if you could be outside? But that being said, it's feasible that there could be, up to 30 people in there at once.
And then under major versus minor, we get into the parking, because currently there's, I don't know how many of the tenants, if you have 2 parking spaces that you're
We have
using.
2 parking spaces that I
Okay.
was planning designating for employees.
So now we have potentially 30 plus more people, if you will, into the downtown area. And what our regulations, we want to promote more business in the downtown, and they're allowed to use all this off-site parking as long as it's available, and then we look at that under major, we really don't under minor.
And
So,
if I could say one thing about the parking, that I'm sort of trying to do is I get a lot of people that come into the restaurant and will be like ordering a beer, waiting for their food. The idea was to get them out of the first floor and into the second, and to free up, because a lot of my traffic is takeout, so people are pulling in, getting food taken out. So to basically take the people who would
would spend more time if they didn't feel uncomfortable there, because it's, you know, people are coming and going, and they generally will leave pretty quickly after they eat, to give them somewhere to go after, or give them somewhere to go before. So I'm not saying it wouldn't be increasing the traffic, but I think it's more as, part of that is it will be increasing the amount of time that the same people are spending in the building. So I don't necessarily see like an extra 30 people coming every day, per se, as opposed to the same people that are coming anyway, potentially spending more time there.
Because the lounge is not food served in the lounge.
Well, the license that I'm going to with the Liquor Commission currently does not require food. However, because I know how people are, we're gonna serve food, but it will be in to-go container type things, because we just don't have enough capacity within our dish washing area to do another 30 sets of plates. So it'll be like cardboard, you know, it'll be a little bit, you know, wax paper in a basket type thing, not like the full plate. It'll just be not quite as fancy as downstairs, is what I'm saying.
What about out in the beer garden?
We are going to serve food the same way, and again, we compostable containers as opposed to actual plates and stuff, because just we don't have physically enough room to wash an extra 10, 20 plates.
So the use is really for a lounge use, it's not for a restaurant use for this additional space?
Not in my what I'm planning on doing is a lounge space. That being said, if people are in there asking for food, you know, I'm not going to say we're not serving food here. We will be serving food, but it's not intended to be that. If you know what I'm saying. If that makes sense.
But it's two separate uses, I'm sorry. Yep, go
There's a
ahead.
zoning requirement that says for the outdoor patio, you have to serve food.
Yeah,
You
so
can't
we
have a
were.
lounge element,
Yeah, we
right?
were planning on serving food. I guess what I'm saying is, it's not the intention that it's going to be like a fine dining restaurant. You know, food will be available, but it's not the main purpose of the space. It will be, you know, available, and people will probably be eating up there, but it'll be more of a place where you're either waiting for a table downstairs, waiting for your food downstairs, or you just ate downstairs, or at any other restaurant in town.
Okay.
But I mean, I anticipate that people will be sitting there and aren't going to want to walk downstairs to pick up a burger. So then we're going to have the, you know, one of the kids run it up or whatever. So yeah, I mean, food will be available, but the idea is that it's a lounge, if that makes sense.
Well, I hear what you're,
Sorry,
I hear what
I
you're
know
saying, but
it's
that's,
a
you know, it's a
combination.
difference between two applications.
I
Because
understand.
currently you probably have a license for you know, the approval for how many tables or whatever in the restaurant.
Right. So
It's
I
different.
called it a lounge because that's what the liquor license that I'm going for
Okay.
is called, and that's doesn't require food but allows it under the Liquor Commission rules. So they're a little bit different than the definitions that are used for the planning board purposes, in terms of just the actual definitions. But that's why I call it lounge, because that's what the Liquor Commission will be calling it.
Okay. Michael, any comments on major versus minor? How you'd like to see this go forward?
Well, just maybe one comment. That's just so there are two concerns: just the parking concern and then the stairway. Isn't that one? Can you?
Yeah.
the
So
stairway? Yeah.
if I can show this stairs that I have here before. I actually had the building inspector come out here several years ago when I first had this idea. But at the time, I was renting, and so I didn't go through with it. But he kind of walked up and had a look, and basically, if you see, so this this fence goes all the way up. There's a little gap in it right here for where our delivery trucks go in. But what the building inspector had told me at the time is the only thing from his perspective that we needed was to put, you know, another, basically put a fence that, or a gate that we'd be opening and closing for the delivery guys only. But once that's there, there's really not going to be a way back there. This fence is here, and then if you get around back, there's also another fence. Like, the idea that people would use the driveway is not really very realistic, just in the sense that you won't be able to get there. And I mean, we're gonna have this lit up, so it would not really make a lot of sense. And also, if you look at, again, the survey boundary, this is all, the whole deck is on my plot. So I don't really see that as being an issue. And I mean, in terms of it being, I mean, I'd say these stairs are significantly safer than the ones leading to the stone church, for perspective.
But to answer the question, there'll be no access
You
off
wouldn't
of,
be able to
off
get
of
in.
the
It's-
drive, the
it's
shared
gonna be completely
drive.
blocked up.
Okay. Anything else, Michael?
So there's no stairway inside the building itself? Or
So there's a back staircase that goes from sort of the back area up into what will be the back of the bar, which is on your,
Shows on the site plan.
it's on the site plan, but that would be employees only, the way that the restaurant is laid out, you can't really get there from within the restaurant.
Good? Any other questions?
And in terms of parking, I think one thing that I will say is that, I sort of try to police, you know, when I know my customers are parking at other people's parking spots, obviously I tell them not to. I don't always know where they're parking, that's for sure. But I will say from my 5 years in business that, well, first of all, my business has been up every year. And when people complain about parking, it's not very often, it's a couple times a month. And generally I find that what they mean is, I had to walk from the bank to here. I had to walk from Water Street to here. What they, you know, they can't park directly in front of the business that they're going to. I'd say there's plenty of parking between Bay Road, the new lot on Beach Street, even in front of the town hall. These spots are almost never used. The ones on Exeter Street are almost never used. So I think it's just people are gonna have to get in the habit of walking to get where they're going, because frankly, there's nowhere to put a bigger lot in town. And I don't think it's even necessary. If you look at, I'm on the town council, and I looked into parking as part of the town council, and one of the things I found was that most big cities aren't building parking garages to be parking garages now. They're actually building them so that they can, in 5 to 10 years, be residential or commercial buildings, because they're just an assumption that with Lyft, Uber, and automated cars, parking is not going to be an issue 5 to 10 years from now. What we're going to need is more loading zones, more spots to drop people off. Seeing that we've been getting more people using Lyft and Uber, which a lot of people in town don't know is an option, but because UNH is there, the drivers are always around. And you can get a ride, I mean, until, I've had some of my employees that lived right over here, but he got a ride, at 1 o'clock at night, because we were just getting out of work, because the drivers are at Durham, they're there. So I think things are going to evolve with parking, and I don't see it in the long run being the issue that it seems like it might be now, I guess, in my opinion.
Okay. Jamie, your thoughts? Major versus minor?
I'm inclined to stay on the minor site plan review side. Mostly because there's not that much construction. I think the parking is a bigger town conversation, and we're already in a zone that's got that kind of a use. So between those three things, I'm inclined to agree with that.
Okay. And Ted?
Yeah, I would agree. I think the parking issue is a larger town issue, and that seems to be the major driver here. I think you made a good point about the ride-sharing service. Also the fact that, if people are going to be drinking at a lounge establishment serving alcoholic beverages, they shouldn't be driving, depending. But that might cut down on some of the parking needs as well for this particular establishment. So.
And Jane?
Agreed.
Okay. All right. And I will officially close the public comments on the application for the request for the waiver. And I'll take a motion. Would someone like to make that motion? And again, this is the motion for granting the waiver of full requirements for major site plan to review this application as a minor site plan.
I'll make a motion to review this application as a minor site plan.
Okay, is there a second? Jane? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. So, Diane, you had some plan or comments.
I had some comments.
Premised.
But we could take a minute to maybe go through some of them. I don't have all the answers necessarily.
No, that's fine.
But I have some comments. I did review the application, first of all, I did review the application against our minor site plan review checklist.
Okay.
And for the most part, the plan is complete with the exception of the parking, which we'll take up as a separate issue. There are a couple of things that
Oh,
came
so
to
did we,
mind.
sorry, not to interrupt, but now do we need to accept the application for minor site plan review?
Yes.
Okay, then we'll
Well,
jump into comments.
But I'm talking about completeness.
Okay,
So
sorry.
we'll do that next
Okay.
before I delve into the issues.
Okay,
Okay, so, one of the things I did note was that, ADA issues were not really addressed in any fashion. And it's a concern with any business that obviously you want people to have access. And, there are, certain provisions, you have to have ramps going into the building, you can't have any architectural barriers. And I'm not sure how those regulations apply to a situation such as here, where we have an existing building that's an existing use and it's been in operation for a long time. So that was one of the issues that was raised, that maybe we need to get some more information on how to a building, a historic building, and if there's some kind of waivers that might come into play, because it is an existing historic building. So I just kind of throw that out as an issue that we may like to explore further.
Can I address that for a second?
well, no, we really
Okay.
need to determine whether or not the application is substantially complete
Okay, sorry.
as a minor site plan review. Once we accept the application, then we can discuss where Diane's
Okay,
going with
gotcha.
these other
Okay.
comments relative to the application.
The only other thing that was missing is we have a general policy that all site plans, there's a notice that's provided to the town department heads, the police chief, fire chief, public works director, and code enforcement officer, and typically a set of plans is attached to that letter. And they're given the opportunity to review and comment and bring to the table any issues that they may have. And in this case, it was an oversight, and I did talk to the applicant about this, and he's more than happy to get plans out to everyone, so that everybody can have the benefit of weighing in and providing input into the process. So I guess, with that agreement with Mr. Kuiper, I would say that the application really is in a form to be accepted as a minor site plan review, subject to getting those comments into Hound's department heads.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the application as substantially complete on the condition that the department head letters are submitted to the town planner
So
prior
moved.
to the hearing application? Prior to approving the application?
Approving, yep, so moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second?
And any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Right.
Motion carries. Now we can actually talk about the specific application. Okay, sorry, that was
Okay,
a lot of
that was-
administrative stuff.
Okay. So I went through the town zoning ordinance, and there are some specific regulations in the M2 zone for properties that are on the main street, where we're trying to encourage sort of a pedestrian orientation to the businesses rather than, let's say, an automotive orientation. And so one of the requirements is along the main street, the primary access point to the business needs to be on the main street. And I guess this just kind of raises a question in my mind where, yes, currently the primary pedestrian access is in front of the building, and it works pretty well, there's no question about that. I guess the thing I have in my own mind is, okay, if we're now making the second floor accessible and there will be access to the second floor, however, it is along the side of the building, and does that mean that we would have to have the applicant get a variance, or can it be interpreted in such a way that, yeah, it's on the side, but his walkway actually is extending itself to the public sidewalk and almost could be a welcoming to people to go into that exit, so.
And it will
And
be,
I just think that's an interpretation question, so I'd like to maybe get some weigh-in from the planning board on that, and what your thoughts are.
well, again, I think the applicant, what we understood is the proposal is that that it would be totally enclosed, other than some type of gated entry that could probably be locked for the purpose of deliveries.
Yeah,
So the access itself would be off of Main Street.
But the entrance for the public and the pedestrians, which that
Yeah.
requirement has to do with pedestrian access, is right to the sidewalk. So,
Yeah, but I'm
Yeah,
saying
you-
the sidewalk's Main Street.
right,
Yeah.
so yes, there is a
I'm just
path
looking at it as a-
from Main Street where you
Yeah,
can
front
get to the
access.
access.
Yeah,
From Main
I'm
Street.
looking
And I
at,
think it probably does. Just wanted
Yeah.
to get some weigh in from the
Okay.
planning board on that.
So where would the accessible entrance be? I guess it would be through the delivery gate that you were talking about?
the what?
Like an
yeah,
accessible
he can't make this, he can't make this ADA accessible, because he'd have to
unless through
change,
the driveway?
but he doesn't have the rights for the public to go up the driveway.
Right.
So you get into
There
those
really
issues.
isn't any room in the back of the lot.
Well, so you technically could do it, it probably wouldn't be ADA compliant, but there
Right.
is, and I didn't take a good photo of it, but just past, the staircase, there is a paved, the hill is paved that goes up to the back of the beer garden, and that fence actually opens. So in theory, you could get in there with a wheelchair, with a couple small ramps.
But that is not your property, correct?
It's not. Well, the driveway is, again, if you look, is owner undefined. So I technically have an easement to, I could have someone pull in with a handicapped vehicle and unload. The place they'd be walking up is technically belongs to Jade Gardens, it's Tong's property. So it's just a matter of, I mean that kind of thing. I rent that spot from him with the parking and kind of use that whole thing as, I've got some trash there and stuff.
Is the picture right here?
Yeah, so that would be
Yeah.
the gate, that would be the door, and then you can see those pavers go all the way down to the driveway. So in theory, you could get someone up there in a wheelchair, although it would be probably not the best.
Does it meet the grade requirements of ADA?
No, probably not.
Probably not.
Definitely
No,
not.
no, no.
You have to have one.
But I guess I'm saying this because
One in
people in
12 is
wheelchairs
the
have gotten
ratio.
up this hill to get into the back of Redworks because they have a back door that's on ground level. So that's why I'm even bringing this up, because even though it's not, I would like to be able to have people in wheelchairs get in there, is what I'm saying. Although it might not fully meet the ADA requirements, and the ADA requirements, I think, do not apply unless I was doing if I was redoing this whole back area, I would have to make that ADA compliant. I'm pretty sure that because it's not there's no alteration, no construction happening, that does not apply. I think even if I was redoing the doorway, I would have to make that ADA compliant, but because I'm not, I do not think that applies. From what I've read, I could be wrong, no.
But what I wanted to throw out to the board is, at one point, the Governor's Commission on Disability in Concord had an accessibility coordinator, whose job it was to work with municipalities and private property owners as well in the state in helping them to bring their buildings into compliance with ADA requirements. So, and in the past, there was an architect in Stratham that we consulted with, who was somebody that they had recommended to assist. But, this does raise some questions, and it's not just, Jonathan's property. Many of the properties in the downtown are in the same boat. And I think it would be helpful maybe if we got some clarification on how to apply these laws to a historic building, number one, and one where, it's a pre-established use and, it's been in existence for a while, and find out what special provisions there might be or allowances for historic buildings and structures. So that would be my recommendation, that as part of the technical review that we do, that we might bring in somebody to help us with that.
I do believe the ADA actually has a phone line you can just call and ask questions like this. I didn't call them, but I was doing some research last night, and I thought I saw that, so I'd be more than willing to do some research into that if it helped the application.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Bob, you had other comments?
Yeah, the other thing, the access, I'm not familiar with life safety code requirements. The fact that you have separate access to the second floor and to the bottom floor, and that only the employees have access within the building. I don't know if that's something that meets those requirements. So one of the things that I did note is that, again, the fire department wasn't notified, so perhaps we could have maybe a limited site technical review and have input from the fire department and get it from them, as this is their area of expertise. And also, we might want to include our building official, Mike Hoffman, in that discussion as well.
Have you met with the code enforcement officer as to life safety issues
I
relative
haven't
to
on
the?
all of this. I thought that would happen after
Okay.
the application being accepted.
Okay.
I had brought him up there though several years prior, when I first started thinking about this beer garden idea. But that was several years ago, and he kind of just took a look and said, I don't see any issues at the moment. But he was going to bring it further, and then I wasn't quite ready. So he has seen the general backyard area though.
And then Diane, you got a comment about outdoor seating?
With outdoor seating, just that I asked the question earlier whether you'd be serving food, because the requirements don't allow outdoor seating areas unless it's in combination with food.
Right, yeah.
With any alcoholic beverages. So I think you've answered that question.
Okay.
So my recommendations would be that we have a limited technical review of the application, including the fire department, the building officials, and other department heads and board members if you'd like to participate, just so we can maybe get a little more information so we're better prepared with, crafting some conditions on any approval if that's how the board chooses to proceed. Personally, I'd like to have a site walk of the property. Up until seeing the pictures tonight, I was sort of in a quandary as to what the lay of the land was. And I know that there's steep topography, and back there's a lot of ledge and rock outcroppings, but I think to go and have a visual of it and see the area where Jonathan's talking about having some kind of handicap ramp, that would be helpful for me to better understand the site.
Okay. Does the board concur with that, scheduling a site walk? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, and can we throw out like a date on that? We'll be continuing the application till the 17th, so between now and the 17th. We'll want to, and probably more on the earlier side, right?
I will be away 29th through March 10th.
Okay, so basically that puts us into the next 2 weeks. So anyone, what time does it get dark now?
5:30?
We don't want to get into, you're gonna be, I'm assuming
When
you
is
work
daylight
do you work
savings?
at the restaurant?
Yeah, my schedule's pretty flexible though. I can
Okay.
be available whenever you guys need.
Okay. And we can park up here and walk down. So let's throw out a date that works, because
Can we do it on Saturday?
Saturday morning, does that work for people?
It works, yeah.
Okay. So you want to do that this Saturday, the 15th?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay.
Can we do it at 9?
Yes, you don't like those early ones. Does that work for everybody?
That's fine. Yeah, that works for me.
9 o'clock
Tolerate.
Saturday. Okay, will be the site walk. All right.
And any members of the public can join us for that, if you'd like to.
No, thank you. I'd love to go in and have some dinner there, but
Yeah, you were hoping that was a 6 o'clock site walk.
Yeah, they won't be serving food, I'm afraid.
Okay. And you'll notify also the building official, fire department, if Mike
Yeah,
wants to
and
go
I'll try
there,
to-
or, okay.
They may want to
Yeah.
visit, but
Okay, and then, I do agree with Diane on having a technical review of this. And you said you're gonna be gone for 2 weeks before? You said the 29th to the 10th?
29th to the 9th.
Yeah. Okay, so site works so yeah, we can schedule a TRC. Who would like to serve on that?
I can do that.
Jane? Okay.
During the day?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? It'd be basically meeting with the applicant, Diane, which probably Mike and Rick, I would assume, or someone from the fire department, to just iron out any issues relative to the site plan.
Yeah, I'll volunteer for that.
Okay, so Ted and Jane, great, okay. All right, and Diane, you'll coordinate with everyone as far as a date on that. Okay,
Try to get it set up
Great.
and check when people are
okay,
available to do that.
super. All right, so, can I have a motion to continue this hearing to the, March 17th meeting? Okay,
Second.
all right, thank you. B and J, F. All right, any discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you very much. So Diane will be in touch as far as the TRC meeting, and we'll see you on Saturday at 9.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. Chairman's report, Eric's not here, but I was going to bring up, we did get through Gretchen from the council a request that we revisit our accessory apartment ordinance for accessory dwelling unit zoning to permit ADUs in detached buildings. So if currently our particular ordinance requires them to be they have to be attached to the single-family residence. That's under the current ordinance. The state law allows these ADUs to be allows the towns to adopt the ordinance, because they have to actually legally allow them to either be in the primary residence, or they could be in an accessory. They could either be a separate accessory dwelling on the same lot, or within a detached building. And obviously, they still have to meet certain guidelines. Our particular ordinance, we elected to not allow them to be in a detached structure. The zoning board, there's been several in town where the zoning board has granted, approvals to appeals for variance to that, thank you. So, does the board wish to take this up? This is a request through Gretchen from the town council, and I've asked her to make sure that the council was on board with this before we did spend any time, if we so chose to do that, and she said they were. So I think that's a go.
Yeah.
All right,
Definitely worth looking at.
okay, so we'll put that on the agenda and.
For the March meeting?
Yep, okay, that'd be great. Okay, any committee reports? Any committee reports, conservation?
No.
The Water Resource Committee is gonna be meeting on the 20th,
Okay,
here in the Town Council Chambers, I believe, at 5 o'clock,
20th,
which is next
okay.
Thursday.
And Kyle will get out, a new update from the last meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And planner, anything else, Diane?
There was a notice about coming up.
Yeah, the spring
And, The
conference.
spring conference, I don't remember offhand what the date was, Susan sent it out to
20th.
everyone.
Did everyone get that
The
notice?
20th of May?
I think so.
Yeah.
If you didn't, contact Susan, because that has been selling out. When I say selling out, in the past few years, there's only so many.
I went to one right after I got on the board, and it was actually a very
Very
productive
good.
day. I was really glad I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great, and they have revolving topics, so there's always the new planners, or the, new members of the planning board, the zoning board, those are great to go to, even as with someone who's been here forever. That's great, because I've been to several, and I like to take that one, and then they'll hit on different topics that are like either being discussed legislatively or laws that have just recently been passed for land zoning. So it really is a well worthwhile day for education. Okay,
So, and we have money in the budget for your
Yes.
travel and your registration
excellent.
fees,
yeah.
so.
So is there a motion to adjourn? There's no further business?
Your job this time.
There you go.
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you, and,
Second it, that's my
all
vote.
right. Ted and Jane, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.